Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard. I've got two filmmakers with me on Zoom. I have Emma Fazzuoli and Clare O'Connor. And nice to see you both.
Good to see you. Yeah, we're Zooming again.
We are on Zoom, so apologies if the sound quality ain't up to snuff. You know, it's a rainy day in Los Angeles and COVID hasn't quite left. We're recording this in March of 2022, and instead of getting together and sitting at the microphones in one room, we're on Zoom. So that is the disclaimer about sound quality. And now we're just going to have fun and discuss Emma and Clare and their film Coco Colby, which was at Filmvasion Los Angeles in 2021 and took home the Audience Award for short film comedy as part of the Screwball short film program, which was, am I allowed to say it was pretty much my favorite. Like, that was just
cool.
You beat three hilarious films like in a block together.
That means a lot.
Thank you. And so I always start this podcast the same way. I'm just going to add, instead of just focusing on Coco and Colby, I remember from last year's Q&A associated with the festival that I know you both started in different arts, not necessarily you didn't start out as filmmakers, but if you want to share, you can decide who goes first, but if you want to just take turns sharing your personal history and how you went from, one artistic discipline to another and then ended up in LA acting and directing. And I should have mentioned, like, Coco and Colby it's hilarious and well made, and it was part of a 48-hour film chase. So even more impressive and probably depressing for people who spent like 2 years on a comedy and it's still not funny.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know, it's tough out there. But who wants to go first?
Clare.
Well, I'll start by saying that I woke up today. It's one of those days where I woke up and it feels like there's something in my eye, which I'm trying to discreetly get rid of, but it looks like I'm crying. So as I'm going to give my personal history, it's going to look like I'm crying at the beauty of my own story. That's not the case. I'm going to kind of go back so you can't tell that there's literally tears streaming out of my eye. I don't know why. It, of course, got a lot worse when you hit record. Anyway, so I, like Emma, started out, I was a real little ballerina. I did that, like, professional ballet training for, all told, over 13 years. It was my whole childhood. I missed many normal kid things in order to do that. No regrets, but it was pretty intense. And
is that like start like age 5 to 18? Like, childhood is,
yeah.
How young do ballerinas actually start when they're serious?
I think it depends on the country.
It does.
I mean, yeah. Like, for me, my professional training didn't really start till I think I was 8. But there were people who had been, like, Emma, when does SAB start? How young can you?
Well, they start younger now.
Really?
I think they start at like 6
Okay.
there. Yeah, but it used to be a few years older. It used to be maybe like 9 or 10, but yeah, now they want that money from the little kids. So
Yeah. shape the bodies young into certain shapes. Like, I'm joking, but that's actually kind of true. And in other countries, they do start things very young, and you hear about them like breaking feet so that they'll be more arched.
that's what we needed.
I wish, I tell my parents, I'm like, you really let me down, parents. You didn't break my feet when I was a toddler.
There was a lack of abuse.
There was a lack of abuse, and it really came back to haunt me later. So I've actually done a lot of therapy because of that lack of abuse, because it led to me not having ultimately the right feet for ballet, which that sounds like a funny thing to a layman, but that is actually what was my biggest problem, was that my feet were not good enough.
And mine too, which is really weird. That actually one of mine was worse than the other. But anyway, sorry, I'm taking away from your story and your timeline.
Which one
But it's
was
fascinating. As a someone who just finds ballet amazing to see. So there actually is a physical curvature in the foot that makes one person better for ballet. It's like being tall for basketball. If your foot is a certain shape, you have a better shot at staying on point and not having horrible injuries?
It won't really affect your injury. I mean, it could maybe, but it's more that it's so specific in the aesthetic that you're going for that certain people, and it tends to be people who are born with kind of alien bodies. Like it's not really your average Joe that has feet like this, but yeah, you want like a foot that A, has a lot of flexibility, and then B, ideally has a really high instep. Like, so there's kind of like almost like a bulge your foot arches. It looks like your foot is even farther over when you're standing on point.
Because someone decided that looks better. That's correct.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Emma, which one of your feet was better?
The left one.
Oh, interesting. Opposite.
Which I broke when I was at school. We're really going to jump all over the place with this, I think. But when I was at School of American Ballet, I broke the left one. And one of my teachers saw my mom on the street when I had broken my foot and was like, too bad it wasn't the right one.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, thanks. Because sometimes when you break certain bones, I don't know, when they heal, your foot will actually have more flexibility, which too bad it wasn't in the right one. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, our bad feet led us to this place.
It's so, yes.
Your healthy, normal feet. I was trying so hard to hold back the obvious question, but you forced my hand. If or when you have daughters, would you let them enter ballet when this is kind of what young women are subjected to? Because boys who do ballet, I learned this from another film, don't have to be on point, right?
No.
So they get less abuse or less physical abuse.
Yeah, I mean, they have injuries more in their upper bodies from lifting people all the time. But yeah, their feet, I would say in general, they're under less scrutiny to have specific. It's also like for every one boy who does ballet, there's about 15,000 million girls. So you can like, you know, the boys, it's sort of like, oh, you want to do ballet? Great. We don't even really care what you look like as long as you're here and you're enthusiastic and you'll, you know, that's an exaggeration, of course, but it is.
Yeah, then they have to starve themselves too. So.
Yeah, I mean, with guys, I'd say also less pressure to be rail thin. It's more, they kind of want to have muscles so they can lift people. Emma, would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. But I will, you know, again, like, sorry, we're really skipping ahead here, but
Great.
I don't know. For both of us, I think probably stopping dancing was more to do with the culture of the ballet world and just like the lack of broadening the world. It's very insular, which for me was like, you know, relating this to film. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, I'm going to School of American Ballet. I'm dancing with New York City Ballet, which, you know, I went there, I did that, but I always was like, I'm also going to be an actor. I'm also going to do this and that. And then when you're in that world, you don't have time to do those other things. And you don't, I think now it's opening up more, but with the social media and all of that, but you know, the ballet world is kind of very like, this is what you do. This is what you spend your whole life doing. And there isn't really much room for anything else. So I think for both of us, we were like, hey, there's a whole world out there. And yeah, we should go do that while we're young. So I retired when I was 19, which is an unusual sentence, but yeah, it's just the truth. So.
And
I don't mean to cast negativity towards ballet. Do you both look back on it as something that was enhancing and taught you discipline and all sorts of valuable things? And there's no regrets. There might be opinions of the culture of it, but it was a positive for you both.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely like that's really, you know, made me who I am for better or worse. But, you know, yeah, I mean, definitely had experiences that and again, positive and negative, like performing at Lincoln Center is something, you know, I'll never forget, but also doing that at a young age has also made moving on difficult because it's like, okay, you reach that point. So it's like, how do you kind of like live up to that, in the rest of your life? And maybe it doesn't matter, but you know, that being like a type A perfectionist, that's something that's, you know, haunts me anyway.
I totally agree with that. And I think too, in ballet, there's a real there's like a psychology to the culture of like a real elitism. Like there's this vibe of like, we are, you know, kind of like the sacrifice is rewarded. It's encouraged that you kind of, you know, forego normal things, normal human pleasures. That sounds so dramatic, but it's kind of true. And like, it's worth it because you get to be this perfect specimen physically, and you get to do this incredible movement that is like, you know, and the ballet world literally takes itself this seriously. You feel like you're the pinnacle of humankind, right? I mean, like, it's like, you're like, I'm doing the thing. Like, it really felt like when I was doing it, and even looking back, I don't think I've ever had to do anything as hard as ballet in my whole life since then. And I, knock on wood, I don't think I'll ever have to do anything as hard ever again. Like acting, you know, when they talk about the competition, and Emma and I are both now actors, we're skipping around here, but like it's nothing compared to ballet, because you're not doing it in a leotard. You don't have to look in the mirror every single day. Like, it's just not as rigorous.
Physically, for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And like, yeah, even like for me personally, psychologically, I feel like it's easier. Ballet was just a very specific, it's kind of like a cult, like you get in a real mindset of, I don't know, you're always chasing this ideal. And like, for me, because I didn't have, like, there were aspects of my body that were that ideal, but my feet weren't. And so that was something that like, I had to contend with that every day. I was looking in the mirror and like realizing all over again, like, this is not, like, I am physically not the shape that I want to be, but I'm here trying to form my body into a shape that it's not, and that it probably never will be unless I break my feet. That's a lot. It's damaging, like just that mindset. But yeah. So anyway, so I kind of transitioned. It was a pretty big transition for me. I got really interested in comedy and improv, which I did realize. And I think, Emma, this might be the same for you. I think we've talked about this, that like the performance aspect of ballet was actually probably my favorite part of the whole thing. Well, it was two things. It was number one, like moving to music felt incredible and still feels incredible. And that's something that even though I don't do ballet anymore, like that will never go away. Like I still, even if I'm doing like a Zumba class, I'm just like, this is the greatest. Which is partly why I think ballet dancers, it does feel like such a privilege to be able to dance to like some of the most beautiful music ever written by a live orchestra. Like that is an incredible privilege. I definitely miss that aspect. And I loved that aspect of performing dance. But performing in general was always really fun. I liked, like, when I would get to perform sometimes with the professional company, even in a kid's role where I was just like a villager or like something, but it was so fun to get to like come up with character and just be like kind of, I don't know, like just hamming it up on stage. That part of it was really, really fun for me. And comedy had always been something that I was kind of interested in. My parents are both very funny. I just kind of grew up in kind of a humor household. So I started taking improv classes. This was in Chicago, by the way. I did Second City's conservatory program. So I did ballet training in Seattle. Chicago was like, comedy was my focus. Started doing like improv. I stumbled into my first on-camera class and ended up meeting the teacher of that. His name is Matt Miller. He ended up being kind of a mentor for me in acting, and he helped me get my first agent in Chicago. And then I started auditioning for some little film and TV stuff, started taking more classes to kind of fill in the acting training that I had missed. And yeah, was there kind of doing that for a few years. Had some breaks. I booked a few TV things. And then the big thing that I booked was a series regular on a show called Proven Innocent, which only had one season. But it was enough. It was a big booking. So that was enough to kind of have the momentum to move to LA and get a great team here. And then I kind of just only started the actual filmmaking thing in earnest really in LA. I did a little bit of it. I've done some 48-hour films here and there. I did one in Seattle, I think 2 in Chicago. And like have always been interested in writing and like incorporating different things that I do into film. But I would say now, especially now that I'm dating someone who has kind of the piece of filmmaking that I don't have any expertise in, which is all the technical stuff, that's been great because we have like very complementary skills and we can shoot stuff and he knows how to do all the editing and lighting and all that stuff, which I don't know how to do at all. And yeah, that brings us to the present. Was that too short, too long? Do we need more detail?
I think it was excellent. And I'm going to share an observation, but I wonder if this applies to Em as well. But I know lots of people who have approached, the storied improv programs, whether it's Second City or Groundlings or, now UCB, and find it too much. And I couldn't help but think, as you told the story, that like the rigors of the Second City program were probably nothing to you compared to ballet. It was probably like, their demands of professionality and whatnot probably just completely fit right into that.
Oh yeah.
That jigsaw puzzle of your mind and how you approach disciplines.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if anything, it was shocking to me how little demand on professionalism there was.
Everyone else quits because it's too demanding, and you were like, this isn't demanding at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I found, maybe I was lucky. I know that it kind of depends like which teachers you get. And in general, I had really kind teachers. I didn't have anyone who was like breaking you down to build you back up or anything, which as a side note, I kind of hate that as an acting class technique in general. But, yeah, it was mostly just fun. I would say the hardest part for me was just being like a type A person like Emma is, and, ballet kind of either attracts those people or creates those people. The most difficult thing for me was like going into a performance without having a plan. 'Cause in ballet, it's like you practice ad nauseum, you know exactly what you're doing on exactly each microsecond of the music. And you've practiced those steps for decades of your life before you're performing them. And so with improv, it was a little bit like, oh my God, like I'm just jumping in here and I'm just going to see how it goes. But that was kind of a really good thing for me to have to practice, because it did make me have to lower my like perfectionism and sort of just hold myself to a different standard than I had been used to. Not necessarily a lower standard, but just kind of more like, I'm going to do my best and that has to be enough. Whereas in ballet, it's like, it doesn't matter if you do your best. If it's not good enough, it's not good enough. Yeah. But yeah, no, that is a good observation. I would say compared to ballet, Second City was a really fun, enjoyable, playful experience.
Yeah, such an important, talk about life lessons between ballet and that to learn. I mean, obviously, multiple people on a stage improvising together, the goal of perfection just has to be destroyed because it doesn't exist. Perfection just becomes a myth at that point.
Yeah, totally.
All right, well, Emma, so you told us when you started ballet, but I don't think we got your transition or anything.
Hilariously, there are a lot of elements of our stories that I'm like, one of us could be saying it and it could apply to both, which is so weird. Yeah. I started dancing really young. Like my mom was a dancer, my aunt, my sister. So it was like something I always grew up watching. Like I watched New York City Ballet's Nutcracker, my favorite films from a young child perspective, that would have been on there because I watched it like every day and would stand up and like try to do the steps in front of the TV, so my mom was like, oh shit, she's talented, so I just sort of fell into that. And did that. I had the dream of going to SAB. That's why I went to high school there. But it was really when I was in New York that I was seeing more performance. I always grew up loving comedy, watching SNL. I got to go see SNL 3 times live. And I was like, I love this. I'm going to do this. And actually at my last year at SAB, they were making Black Swan. And I saw a notice that they needed dancers to be like in the core of the company in the movie. So I was like, I'm going to audition. So I sent in my stuff and then I got an audition and it was like a group kind of thing, but Darren was there. And I didn't know that they had already kind of approached the school and they said, no, they didn't want their students doing it. But I was like, I don't care. I'm going anyway. Like, I'm not going to miss out on this. So that was cool. But at the end of the day, I couldn't do it. The director of the school was like, well, if you're going to miss any classes, you can't do it, which obviously was not possible. Film schedules don't work around people who are essentially background dancers. But that really, I was like, damn, like I gotta, like, this is what I want to do. I gotta get into it somehow. So when I graduated, I went back to Arizona, where I'm from, to dance with Ballet Arizona, which is where I grew up dancing. And I will say, like, Claire, for me, like, performing was always the element of dance that I loved. Like, I actually didn't love taking class and doing that same thing over and over again. I loved performing. And like, I was Clara and the Nutcracker for 3 years. And I was like, so like the story and like the character, you know, it was ridiculous. But that was the element that I was so into. And like, just like you said, even doing like the small roles with the company that was like, you know, like when I was at SAB, a couple times I was in Sleeping Beauty doing like the court people and all this. And it was so much about, it was so fun because it was so much about character and it was so free. And anyway, that's the element of ballet that I love that transitions obviously into acting. So when I went back home to dance with Ballet Arizona, I was like, well, I got to start doing some training. And I was like, I guess I'll start with improv because that's the farthest thing away from ballet. That exact same thing of like complete fear of having no idea what you're going and doing when you've spent literally decades knowing exactly what you're doing. So at first I hated it. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't think I can be an actor. This is insane. And then I ended up really loving it. And I was on like a comedy team out there. And once I stopped dancing after that 1 year in the company, I was like, okay, like this, I'm done with this. I started, you know, doing more training. So I was on the improv troupe. I was training with various people. This coach who had been at Actor Studio, was very intense. I did some theater, all that jazz. Kind of went back to New York for a while, but decided I wanted to move to LA because I had sort of done the New York thing in the ballet world, and I just wanted to mix it up and, you know, more focus on film and television. So I moved out here. And I did the Groundlings program, just the improv portion, kind of on and off over a couple of years. But I actually got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease a couple of years after I moved here, which inspired me to make this documentary, which was my first foray into filmmaking, which is actually on Amazon. You can watch it. It's called Blissful at Zero, about this really amazing young woman with terminal cancer. It's kind of documenting the last couple of years of her life. And I just sort of like, I met her and I'd been wanting to do a project about, you know, youth dealing with chronic illness or dealing with, you know, obstacles that seem insurmountable. And I met her through this really strange connection to the Groundlings and improv. And it was, that's a whole story. But, yeah, we spent this time making this documentary. It's a feature. That was essentially my film school. I made it with some dear friends of mine who I work with all the time now. I co-directed it with Joe Gasparic, who is wonderfully talented in many, many realms as a director, editor, producer, all the things. But that really inspired me to want to continue creating, which was always something I knew I kind of wanted to do. But yeah, that got me going on that path as well. So that sort of has led us here.
And that's a feature documentary is an overwhelming amount of work. I mean, that is, talk about jumping into the deep end.
Yeah, which was kind of crazy. We met her, I met her, and she told her story, and I was like, we got to share this, because she wanted to, and she'd actually been approached by some other people, and it just wasn't really the right fit. And I knew Joe and Aaron had a company mostly making docu-style content. And so I was like, okay, this sounds like something they'd be interested in. So I approached them, and Joe was like, well, I've done enough, you know, shorts. If we're going to do this, I want it to be a feature. I was like, okay, that's a lot. But he was like, look, we can direct it together. And the film ended up being something we wouldn't have imagined, because even though she had already been given like 6 months and had way surpassed that at this point, she took a fall. If you watch the film, it's in there. She went to a wedding and she took a fall, and that kind of like was set off sort of the end. So we ended up spending her last 3 months just kind of like being there for everything. And yeah, then taking a long time afterwards to craft the story. But I think that's what's so amazing about documentary. It's such a good learning opportunity because you're working in reverse and you're really learning how to craft a story from scratch, because you have the material and then you have to create that because there isn't a script. So it was a lot of work, but it was the most, I mean, I don't think I'll ever work on anything that personal and that just intense in many ways ever again. Because you know, literally we're going through this end of life moment with this woman and her family. And yeah, it was something really insane and really special. So that was a very different way to get started in filmmaking, for sure.
For sure. Although I also am making a connection that I don't know what the other film projects were like, but Coco and Colby's mockumentary. And you have this rather significant documentary experience.
Right.
I don't know if Claire's the stuff you did in Seattle and Chicago was mockumentary or all over the place, various scripted stuff.
I think for me, it's more, I'm just a huge Christopher Guest fan. Yeah.
Yes. And I think I said that to you both during the Q&A for Film Invasion last year, which was, you know, I wish most people fail when they try to follow the Christopher Guest model. Mm-hmm. But you two did not. And I wish more people would try, because I think he's kind of done with it. It's too much work for him, right? You reach a point where you don't want to work that hard and you'd rather just make great money making commercials. So fair enough. He gets to make commercials now. Someone else has to take over and
Emma,
give us the next best in show and Waiting for Guffman, right? Because
there we go.
It's valid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so fun. We both I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the 48-hour challenge, you're given, like, you have to meet certain rules and guidelines. So we were given 2 different genres, which were coming of age, and what was the other one? Thriller.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were like, let's just use mockumentary as like a device to tell the story, because that was both something we enjoyed. So that just kind of like fell into it, but it also, like, we sort of cheated because we didn't have a script. So we skipped that step in the 48-hour. We didn't have to write a script. We're like, okay, we'll like beat it out, basically the story, and then we improvised the rest. So that was kind of like our cheat into making the film faster, essentially.
For sure. And you knew, or who came up with the idea of a sibling rivalry? Because of course, once you have that, then you have thousands of comedic things you can do, whether it's over. They gave you the mug, right? When the mug a prop you were forced to use.
Yes.
And yet it plays such an amazing role in the film.
Yeah. I mean, the mug thing was pretty serendipitous because my mom, who's an artist, has gotten really into, she's like a painter, but she's gotten really into ceramics in the last couple of years. And during COVID, when other people were like learning how to bake sourdough, my mom was like becoming best friends with a lot of ceramic artists from Etsy. I don't know, like, so I won't show you because my apartment's really messy, but I have a collection of so many different mugs that she sent me. And at that point she had sent me, that was one of the first mugs that she had sent me. And it was so ornate and cool looking that it was like crazy when that was the prop. Cause I was like, oh my God, we have to use this. Like it's the strangest mug you've ever seen. It's beautiful, like strange in a great way. So yeah, it felt like, some divine intervention there. For
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, should we jump into Coco and Colby and like, should I ask a question? I'm fine. The answer is I'm just making it a yes. So when you decided to do mockumentary and you had all these skills you both brought to it, particularly the improv skills, obviously, did you have discussions about what personalities you would each portray? Because there's definitely the straight person and the the jokes or the extreme personality and the solid personality bumping into each other.
Yes, we did talk about that. And the other thing that's just occurring to me now is that it also worked out so well because I feel like Emma and I both have a relationship with our boyfriends in real life, which is they have to be like the documentarians of like our self-tapes, and like when they're taking photos for our Instagram, like they have to be like Instagram boyfriends sometimes for us. So it's so funny that we were it was like I feel like it didn't shock anybody that would be how they would play in to this. You know, it was kind of nice that we got to show it in a actual film project, because that is, at least for me, it happens in my life. You know, Jeff is sometimes shooting footage of me for my professional acting career. So, but yes, to answer your question, we had discussed, we had one like big Zoom meeting that was the four of us where we kind of just like hashed out our ideas, and we talked about like character. That was kind of because a lot of it we did, like Emma said, we figured out like the beats that we wanted to hit. But it was all improvised. Like, you know, we didn't have a script. So it was important that we kind of knew who our characters were, so that we would know. And because we filmed separately as well, we needed to, you know, be all on the same page about what was going on. So we had decided, and like also ballet also lends itself, competitiveness is just, oh my God, you know, even worse than acting. It's just nuts.
Well, I just realized I completely failed, and I didn't make you tell the story of your meeting, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So please jump in.
Emma, do you want to tell it?
I mean, I went to a summer program in ballet. When you are at a certain age, you train all year long, and then during the summer you go train somewhere else, because God forbid you take off, you know, a summer and be a kid. No, I mean, you kind of have to. If you took that much time off, you would you would die probably. Yeah. When you took class again, you would just pass away. But I went to a summer program one year at Pacific Northwest Ballet, which is where Claire studied, and is from Seattle. And we were in the same class. And I don't know that we actually even spoke that much, because I went with a bunch of my friends from SAB, and we were kind of like an insulated little group. And you weren't living in the dorm or anything, right?
No,
because you were with your family. Okay. So, but we were in the same class.
Yeah.
And we were friends on like Facebook and all of that. And when she started acting, I was like, oh shit, you know, like she stopped dancing and started acting, and I stopped dancing and started acting. And we kind of kept up with each other on social media.
Yeah. And also just to say, Emma, like SAB stands for School of American Ballet, which is like pretty much the top school in the country. So like Emma, I feel like it was like her crowd, you know, when they came to the summer program, everyone was kind of like, okay, they think they're better than all of us. Like not Emma specifically, but it was kind of like, it was a vibe, you know, it was
would be like if a group of Juilliard kids showed up at some drama school in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. And I should say that like the school that I went to is probably in the top 10, maybe even the top 5 in the country. It's just that like hers is like, you know, that was like the hardest summer program to get into. Like they were also seemed to be, at least from our perspective, the most obsessed with body types being a certain way. I remember being at an audition for SAB summer program, and like, I can't remember who was doing it. But she just spent a lot of time like touching my ankle, and like she had me like tendu side, and she was like kind of like saying flexibility, and I was like, you know what? We know it's not good. Like I just wanted to be like, we know it's not good enough, and I'm not going to get in, so you can just stop. But she was just like carefully, like, you know, she looked at it, and then we'd look at it together in the mirror, and it was sort of like,
it was probably Katrina Killian. Was it Katrina?
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. It was, pretty awful experience, but yeah. So Emma came with like this gaggle of SAB girls who were all like, you know, these perfect, they all had like perfect bodies, and they were all like really amazing, and everyone was kind of, so that's probably why we didn't talk, because we were all a little bit like, ooh, it's the SAB girls.
Right. So you didn't bond when you first met,
Yeah.
but you became Facebook friends and aware of each other. And when you took post-ballet paths that matched, did you re-find each other in LA or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We met up in Atwater Village.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
Was it like, hey, let's meet for a drink? We knew each other as kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So it wasn't like meeting in an audition or this or that. It was like, hey, it's like meeting. You find out that someone you went to camp with is now in the same town as you, and you say, hey, by the way, for those listening who aren't in the LA area, Atwater Village is like, that's the cool place.
I used to live there. I used to be one of those cool kids, and now I'm just a loser in Burbank. Just kidding. Burbank is great. No, but yeah, Claire moved to LA, and I had been like aware of your journeying out here. And yeah, I can't remember how we were like, let's meet up. I will say that ballet, for as much crap that we may be speaking about it, you do really have like this bond with other people that have been through it, because it is just like a really specific like life. And especially to have left that at a young age, like we've just had such a shared experience that you do kind of like try to stay in touch with those friends, because they just sort of like get it. They kind of get the lens in which you look at life through now, having, done something that disciplined and everything. So
yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like when we finally met up here, it was sort of like I remember getting back and I told Jeff, I was like, oh my gosh, it was so great. Like it was like so easy to talk to you for that reason. It just felt like we had been friends for a really long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like that. I feel like we could, because of the ballet background, there is like that shared experience and lens that we see everything. And now that we're actors, we have a lot in common, but like, it seems like we can kind of find things to talk about and laugh about endlessly. Like we made these allergen-free cinnamon rolls last week that Emma could eat. And it was like a 7-hour experience together. And it was still like, I feel like I wasn't like tired of you by the end. Like I'll speak for myself. I was, we still have more, there's more to mine here.
Exactly. And there are more cinnamon rolls to make. So
yeah. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Well, I wanted to bring up two things. I'm going to play host again and try to mention two things. First, I guess I'll try to be fair to them. The boyfriends who helped make the film are Jeffrey Prather and Adam Hutzel, and bravo, gentlemen, for being supportive partners.
Yes.
And when I hear it, it really does sound. It's almost like you served together in like maybe different part. You weren't in the same brigade in the Army or the same, but it's like you both know what it's like to be in the Army. And so now you're out together, and you honestly, it just creates a great overlap of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of is what it is.
Yeah. And you've both described yourselves as type A, and yet your collaborations go fine, even though there's 2 A's in there. Correct?
So far.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Take
true.
turns letting each one like, okay, you be anal for a while, and then I'll take over when you're tired. Or how does that work?
I'll say that I think the key to Coco and Colby working out the way that it did was, and I think I said this when we spoke initially, was that we had like zero expectation of it. At least I did. I was like, this is probably going to be horrible, because I'd never done a 48-hour festival, and I'm the type of like director that does a lot of preparation. Like I'm talking like a ton of preparation. So going into something like this where you can't do that was terrifying. So we were like, whatever, we're just going to have fun. That's the goal of this. It was like the height of COVID. So I think that helped us probably not run into those kind of issues, because we were like, well, it is what it is. It'll turn out the way that it did. And I think because we didn't put pressure on ourselves, that's how we were able to find something really fun and organic.
Yeah. And again, we were filming separately with our boyfriends who are both not type A.
Right. Yeah, no.
So it was actually, so we could each be our own, like, I'm like directing. Jeff obviously brought a lot to the table with his expertise in everything, but I was still sort of like, I think I want it to be like this. Like Emma and I were directing it. And then I think you kind of had a similar vibe.
Right.
With Adam. Yeah. So I don't know. We haven't done something like together It might just be a brawl.
But you did end up on screen together towards the end, yeah. So,
Yes.
but then was that fun? Was that like all of a sudden the guys had to like decide, oh wait, I normally hold the camera, now that's you, or was it two cameras?
It was two cameras for some.
Yeah, that was part of the, like, there was a lot that we couldn't actually fit in because there is a time limit also to the 48 hour. It's like it has to be 7 minutes or something like that. And there was a lot of footage and kind of a lot that there was so much good stuff with, because one element of it is like my character is having a documentary about her and her situation, and Claire's character was like, well, I'm going to do it too because she's doing it, but she hired this guy that's like her local barista that doesn't know anything really about, so there was supposed to be kind of like this differentiation in like the production value of our productions, but I didn't get to, like, there wasn't enough time to fit all of that in. There was a lot of funny stuff with Claire and Jeff and kind of like what was going on their production side versus ours. And that was part of it too. Like that one scene where we have like kind of the standoff outside, like we wanted to see the other guy, like you see Jeff and Adam in each other's footage because they're both shooting us having this showdown, which was so fun to do.
Yeah.
They both did great jobs when that as crew voices. When you needed a crew voice, I definitely added something.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're lucky that they're so agreeable, those two.
Yeah, I think that every day.
Wonderful. All right. So, and good festival run with it, in spite of COVID?
Yeah, I mean, a small festival. I would say like we were kind of like, I think we decided on like the monetary number that we wanted to spend on festival submissions. And then we were like, this is how many we're going to apply or submit to. But yeah, it was fun. Again, because we had no expectations. It wasn't like we were like, it's the Palme d'Or or the guy. So everything.
You decided not to spend more on your festival run than you did on the film, which some people end up having to do, right? If you were like, I'm going to try all the top 100 and then I'm going to do these. It's madness. It adds up fast.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And plus everything was online. So other than like getting to go to Film Invasion events, like, you know, everything was online. So I do feel that that's sort of a different experience than getting to like go and see your film on the screen and all of that. But yeah, we didn't expect that it would go to any fest. You know, we were like, who knows what's going to happen with this thing. So when it came together, like when I was editing it and there were moments of like, I said this and she said near the exact same thing from her perspective. We're like, okay, I was like, okay, I think this is going to work. This is going to be fun. So everything was a positive surprise.
I agree. All the any festival we got into, it was like, wow, awesome. Like,
yeah,
so much.
Yeah. Cause in theory it was originated through a festival anyway. So it began with a festival and I'm sure it was virtual at the time. So it was everyone probably watched each other's films and chatted, and it was probably a nice communal experience.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it was definitely great to do in the midst of COVID. It was a bright spot for sure.
Yeah. Just like the many people I've talked to who took part in Film Invasion in Los Angeles last year in 2021 are like, yeah, that in-person outdoor festival mixer, that was like the only time I got to see other people.
Yeah.
Because it was lockdown was just starting to end, but it was, we didn't get to be inside the theater, but thank goodness we were able to have people meet each other outside.
Yeah.
It was a weird time for sure. I feel like my social skills like have gone way down. Yeah. So now it's like, and I'm still the one person wearing a mask at whatever I'm at. I don't really understand I guess everyone's saying COVID's over now, even though I don't know. I'm still like kind of being weird in social situations because I'm the only one wearing a KN95 still. But yeah, it's hard. Small talk is difficult.
Yeah,
it's fun. It's always more fun to actually have something real to discuss with someone, like film or something else. Yeah, but by the way, I have your back. I'm never stopping with the mask because honestly, it applies to colds and flus too. And I don't want any of that in my body again. I've gone so long without a cold.
Yeah. I totally agree. I'm like a germaphobe. So this has been like a blessing for me. I'm like, wonderful. You know, I had a head start I used to carry around hand sanitizer and people would make fun of me. And then I was like, germ theory. Turns out like it's a thing. But yeah, love my masks.
Me too, though. It's okay. We can all share that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, so now, what projects have you filmed stuff since Coco and Colby? And have you collaborated, or has it just been on your own?
Sort of. Okay, so I'll go first. So the big thing that I've done since is Jeff, my boyfriend, wrote and directed a short film called A Mind Cannot Touch. And it's a short sci-fi drama. And he actually hired, and I was one of the co-producers, and I cast it and I did production design on it. And he hired Emma's boyfriend, Adam, to be the DP for it. So there was that collaboration, which was awesome. Adam was amazing. And Adam kind of came with his friend, Cole, who he works with a lot. And Cole was also great. And like, yeah. And then he recommended other people. So it was like a real, we did a crowdfunding thing for it and had a small budget, but we had a real crew. Everyone was paid. So it was a different experience than Coco and Colby. It was a real, like we had a call sheet and it was a professional film set situation. It was SAG too. The actors we hired were both SAG and pretty, they've done some cool stuff in their careers. But yeah, that's like done now. We're in the very end. The end is in sight. It's at a VFX house called Engine Room. They're like doing the finishing touches on it right now, which is super exciting. We got to see a sneak peek. The special effects look amazing. Like we wanted it to be. I'm not really a sci-fi person. Jeff knows a lot about sci-fi. I think he said that it's not hard sci-fi. So we're trying to make all of the special effects be very not draw attention to themselves. It's not like a Star Trek situation or like, look at our cool effects. It's a drama about a mother and daughter, and then it has sci-fi elements to it. So we needed to make sure that the special effects were very subtle. And yeah, so that's going to be done soon. And then we're going to do like a full court press with festivals. So fingers are crossed.
Excellent. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying there. For those who are listening to this, who are interested in VFX and whatnot, like we added a best VFX category last year because someone wanted to sponsor it. And one of the films that checked that box that they wanted to submit for it, it took a discussion. It turned out like what they had done was like use VFX to add background where there weren't background actors. And it was all, you could watch this film and think there were no VFX.
Right.
And that's what made it so successful.
Yeah.
It's really, and I understand why that is taking a while and definitely, so, bravo to all of you for getting that done. Cause sci-fi is a rewardingly difficult challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's been good for me to learn. Like, I think I definitely had, cause it's not a genre that I've just spent a lot of time with either in books or on screen. So I didn't really know. I kind of had a little bit of a like sci-fi, we're going to be aliens. Like, so now I'm kind of getting an education on how you can have nuanced elements of sci-fi. And like one of my favorite writers, actually George Saunders, a lot of his stories have like sci-fi elements, but he's like a real literary fiction dude. Like he's not, writing, I don't know. There's not spaceships in his work. So yeah, I've learned a lot too about like what it means, the genre. It's kind of a flexible term.
If you want to ruin a backyard barbecue, and I've seen this happen in my backyard, let someone start a hard versus soft sci-fi delineation discussion. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, it just ruins it. It's like, I don't know. There's an analogy I'm forgetting, but yeah, it's like trying to describe everyone arguing about what constitutes the color blue. Like, what is blue to you? Like, anyway.
Yeah. Good times.
And Emma, what about, have you You want to direct again? Have you directed again?
Yeah, actually, I have a short called Lucy that I did with another one of my collaborators, my writing partner, the wonderful Daniel Robert, which is an absurd comedy crime caper about a paranoid 30-something trying to get his night back on track after a food delivery robot accidentally drops off a baby. So it's got a robot, it's got a baby, it's got a crime ring. We have a lot happening. It's really fun. It's very absurd. So I wrote that with Daniel. We produced it, I directed it, and we're both acting in it. But we have some great actors. Adam, my boyfriend, was the DP, and actually Jeff. So hilariously, there were small collaborations in both of these. Jeff is one of our FBI agents. I don't want to give everything away, but great. He hasn't seen it yet still, actually. No. Oh my God. I have to send you guys the link. It's done. We're in the midst of sending it to festivals and all of that. But yeah, we did a crowdfunding campaign, all of that. It was nice to actually get to work with a little bit of money on that. So that is going to be coming out into the world on the festival circuit soon. And then I also produced an Iranian short film by a really great up and coming filmmaker over there, which is weird how I kind of connected with him. But actually, it sort of relates to one of the films I'll talk to in the 4 questions segment, plugging that, I guess. But anyway, we sort of met online through my Lucy campaign, and he was looking for a producer to help him fund his next film. And I watched his first short called Saba, which was really amazing, really moving, really great performances. So that is also done and in the midst of kind of starting to submit it and all of that. Obviously that I wasn't there for production because they shot it in Tehran. So I wasn't really going to Iran, but yeah, working on some other things, writing and all that good stuff. But yeah, we both did shorts last year with campaigns and all that. It's how funny.
Yes.
Superb. I have to say, the Iranian people adore cinema, and there's not that many people who run. I guess there's 10,000 film festivals in the world. So there's 10,000 plus people who know this, but every day we get 2 or 3 emails from someone inside Iran who says, I would love to be in your festival. I follow it online, but because of the sanctions, we're not allowed to even have credit cards here. So how can I pay the fee? So can I please have a waiver? And needless to say, we just are forced to respond to every one of them. We hope things change soon. But if we open the door to free submissions from Iran, we'll have, 600 submissions who paid and 2,000 who didn't. Like it's just, we can't open that door. But the people of Iran love cinema. And for those who don't know, I guess I'm hopping on the people of Iran are not the regime.
Right.
And they make that very clear in their art. And as a culture, they just adore it. And it's an educated, sophisticated society. So that's my way of saying, when I applaud you for working with filmmakers in Iran, I'm actually applauding you, knowing a little extra that and that's something I didn't know. Like when he was doing the campaign for this film, it was, he had to have a bank account in another country and all of, just kind of all of these barriers that obviously we wouldn't necessarily be aware of. It's just insane. But yeah, there are a lot of great filmmakers over there and really important stories to tell, and, stories that aren't like ours to tell. But it's great to be able to help facilitate those and get those out into the world by, any way that we can. So yeah, I can't wait to see that get out there as well. That sounds like you had an excellent experience.
Yeah.
Anything else anyone wants to add? I feel like we've reached the current time, so we can wrap this one up.
Sounds good.
Before I go on my little outro spiel of all the websites, you want to tell people how to follow you in your work, what with these new things coming and whatnot?
Sure. I would say Instagram is the best for me. My Instagram handle is Clare, spelled C-L-A-R-E, no I, _makes_things. So Clare makes things. And you can see there I have, I'm tagged in a bunch of stuff for the film A Mind Cannot Touch, which also the Instagram for that is @A Mind Cannot Touch. Yeah, those are my two things.
Actually, can you repeat the title of that? Is it mine or Mike?
A Mind Cannot Touch.
A Mind Cannot Touch. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
I am also an Instagram person. You can follow me at Emma Sophia F. That's my personal page. Sophia's SOFIA. And Lucy's Instagram is Lucy_a_short_film. And Unjustified is @UnjustifiedShortFilm. So yeah, no websites, any of that. I just do the gram.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, at this point, managing a website is so close to pointless because all it is no one goes to it.
Yeah, it's just another thing to have to manage and keep up, and you can have all the same material on Instagram and like on Film Freeway as well. So
yeah, no, and I say that as someone who's about to name 3 websites, but you have no choice when you do a film festival. There actually has to be a website for people to go check out what you've done in the past and whatnot, and the podcast requires a website because for those who don't know how podcasts work, it's actually the podcast feed is actually generated by a website. That's how they work. It's the oh my God, I'm blanking on the term, but the RSS feed of the website is in fact how Apple and every other podcatcher updates itself. There, a look behind the curtain of podcasting. I just bored the F out of how many people? I don't know. So I will now name everything, but I'll throw in one more nod. So Discovery Indie Film did give birth to a TV series called Discovery Indie Film. It's on Prime Video. And I just want to mention to both of you, but especially Emma, that there is a film called The Cat in this new season that is an amazingly artistic animated film that takes place in Tehran. It was written and directed by Mary Apik, who was the Meryl Streep of Iran, but now lives in Los Angeles because she had to get out of there because she believed in freedom and art. And it's an amazing story of a young girl running away from the dark, evil presence of the regime throughout Tehran. And it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out for sure.
For sure. So that's what better way can I pimp the hell out of that TV series? Season 5, episode 8. Might be 6, might be 8. I don't know. My brain. But anyway, if you want to learn more about this podcast or more about the TV series on Prime Video that it gave birth to, people can go to discoverindiefilm.com, and on social media, it's @DIFwins. Oh, and I forgot to beg for stars. Yeah, if you please like and subscribe and review the podcast. It's nice if people do. Even nice if you two did, but no obligations. I joke now at the end of every podcast that I think like 120 filmmakers have been on it so far, and I think there's like 20 reviews on iTunes. So it's kind of interesting ratio. I guess it's 1 in 10 bothers to. I don't even know. It's probably no one review. They probably feel like, oh, it's too egotistical to review the podcast I was on. But anyway. So @DIFwins. Oh yeah, and like and subscribe. And if you want to be really nice, give 5 stars to the TV series on Amazon. Just search for Discovery Indie Film on Amazon and say, these are the best short films I've ever seen. I mean, it'd be nice if you watched them first, but actually I think Amazon changed the rules and you have to watch first now to review.
Oh.
Because I was trying to review a film that was at the festival 3 years ago, and he finally released it on Prime, and I'm like, I'm going to give that amazing film 5 stars, and it's like, you have to rent it first. I actually spent $4.99 just so I could give him 5 stars. So practicing what I preach a little.
Yeah.
All right, I'll shut up. Film Invasion Los Angeles had Coco and Colby, won the Audience Award last year. If you want to learn more about that festival that we hold every June, and it is back at the theater this year, go to filminvasionla.com, and it's @filminvasionla on social media. And its sister festival that is every November is the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. And you can learn about that if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And as Emma referred to, talking about favorite films, we're going to stop recording, and then we're going to start recording again and do the next episode, which will be Claire and Emma answering the 4 questions, which includes favorite films and maybe some films that you don't like as much. We'll see. No shit talking necessary. It's all about the love of film. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you both for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was great.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for listening.